back to my channel. Today I am going to share with you guys some updates on the preschool curriculum that I've been going through. If you are not familiar with that, I will put the whole video down in the description box linked for you guys to check out. But basically, I am a homeschool mom of 23 years. My kids have learned a lot of really cool stuff, and I want to learn that really cool stuff as well. Of course, I've learned a ton of it alongside them, but I have noticed that there are gaps in my education as they have been exposed to different things through this particular curriculum that I would like to have a deeper understanding of myself. And so I decided it's getting close to the end of my homeschooling career, and now I'm going to homeschool myself and start fresh at preschool and go all the way through this curriculum that my kids have been doing for the last 10 years or so, and just, explore on my own the things that I feel are gaps in my education, things that I love to study, just kind of become a student again. I've always valued self-education, and through these years of adulthood so far, I have tried to focus on, studying and learning and deep diving into the things that I'm interested in. So this is just another step of the self-education that I have really always done. So if you are new and you would like the nitty-gritty on what I'm doing and my education history and all that kind of stuff, check out the video in the description box below. But today I have 3 books to share with you guys that I have read over the last couple of weeks to start off this preschool journey. And I just thought that I would talk about them a little bit, just about the kind of rabbit trails that a couple of them took me on. All right, so the first one that I read was The Story of Ferdinand by Monroe Leaf. This was my first time reading this story about Ferdinand the Bull. And I think that it's really the illustrations that make this. The story itself is pretty basic, but the illustrations are adorable. For instance, here's Ferdinand by the tree that his mother probably marked for him all of these years as he grew up. Here we have some bandaged bulls reading about a bullfight in Madrid. Notice their bandages on their back legs and things because they've already been fighting. One that I especially love is Ferdinand likes to sit out under a cork tree. Look. So the cork tree is like actual bottle corks, which is funny. So like I said, I really did enjoy the illustrations in this, which is a lot of times what the kids are going to enjoy as well, right? The story was super basic because it's written for little preschoolers. The story is basically about just being happy and comfortable with who you are and what you're into and what you're not into, and that you can look just the same as someone else and have completely different interests and, morals and convictions and thoughts about things and political beliefs and all that kind of stuff. And it was just kind of about being settled with who you are. So I thought that was a great story. I did do some deep diving in this story on the sport, I guess, of bullfighting. So ignorant me did not realize that the bull actually dies in a bullfight. And that was just horrific. And reading about that, I went and kind of read about the different, there's like several different people who have different titles in a bullfight that do different things. And poke the bull in different ways to incapacitate him or rile him up or whatever. And so I was reading about those different titles, and that's when I became aware that they actually kill the bull. So I had a great awakening. So that was pretty disgusting. Secondly, Ferdinand is a pretty pacifist bull. He doesn't want to fight. He just wants to sit under the cork tree and, smell the flowers. And so I, like I said, loved that cork tree illustration. So I looked up the cork tree. It is actually a cork oak. It is first harvested when it is 25 years old, and then every 9 to 12 years after that, the cork grows on the outside of the tree, kind of like its bark. And so it's only those first few inches that are harvested, which, you know, keeps the tree alive and fine. It can be harvested over and over again without killing the tree, which is a nice contrast to Ferdinand's presumed fate. So Ferdinand, at one point in the book, is called to a bullfight. And I loved this picture of him peeking out this little door. And above the door is this plaque here. And it says in Latin, Sic semper prosit. To my best estimation, this means something like, may it advantage you, or good luck, which I thought was kind of funny, right? Good luck. Kind of funny and ironic, and obviously put there for the adults. So I thought this was a really cute book. The cover really appeals to me with, you know, the red and the black and the flowers and just that whole illustration. But it was a cute story and definitely adorable illustration. So I'm glad I read that one. After that, I read The Adventures of Danny Meadow Mouse by Thornton W. Burgess. I have a whole bunch of these Burgess books. And this is the one that I chose to read for my preschool curriculum because the list just says to read books from him. This one, I didn't really care for the storytelling at all. I did not really find the characters to be super endearing. I was a little put off when I read that one of the characters was named Peter Rabbit, so I did look things up there. And it seems that the Peter Rabbit stories and other animal stories by Beatrix Potter were published first. And Burgess's son loved these stories so much that when he was telling his stories to his child, you know, making up stories, his child insisted that the rabbit be named Peter. And so I guess as it moved into publication, they just stuck with that name. And copyright laws, especially over, you know, one country to another, at those times weren't as strict as they are now. And so he was able to publish his rabbit character not too long after Beatrix Potter published her own with the same name and very similar story ideas. And I just thought that was so weird. That wouldn't fly now, I don't think. I did not enjoy the storytelling style of this book. I felt like it was supposed to be kind of like a folksy sort of voice. Things like, you know, something like, sure didn't like that piece of pie. No, sir, he didn't. And I'm just like, come on. I don't know. Is that horrible of me? I just didn't enjoy that. So maybe that is very endearing to some. So that's just a personal preference. But for me, I couldn't get past that storytelling voice. Now, I have read one other book of writing by him. It's a book about birds, and they have different bird stories in them. I have read that one aloud to my kids, and I did not get that same folksy sort of feel to his storytelling style. I do remember that my kids were kind of bored with the stories, but then again, they were like in their middle school years. So maybe they were just, you know, past it. But I don't remember that storytelling voice in those books. So it's possible that he just made it for these shorter stories, or that it was just for this one particular book. But that threw me. I do think that a preschool age child would be bored with these stories. Now, I've not read them to a preschool age child, so I could be totally wrong, but I can tell you that my own children probably would not have got a lot out of. I don't think that they would have followed them very well, and I think that they would have been bored. But if you have a different experience with your kids, great. But I'm kind of not feeling so bad that we never really got to these because I don't think my kids would have loved them. All right, and then the third book that I read was Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. This was my second read through this. I read this with my youngest son several years ago, and it was a really special experience. I really enjoyed reading that with him. He was like 10 or 11, so he was totally humoring me to sit and read this with me, but we loved it. We really did. So I did read through this, and it was funny because I found myself reading the stories with the character voices that I remembered from childhood. I ended up stopping and looking those cartoons up because I just didn't have a full memory. And I found that I actually was mixing two cartoons from my childhood that featured Winnie the Pooh and his characters. So before I even finished the book, I did some deep diving in other directions. And I remembered that the first Winnie the Pooh like show for kids that I remembered featured these people in costume, like life-size, like human-size Pooh and Rabbit and Tigger and all that. And their costumes were kind of like animatronic, like the Chuck E. Cheese costumes where the eyes will move, automatically. And they're people inside of them, unlike Chuck E. Cheese, but parts of their costumes move automatically. So I had remembered that one. And so the song that was in my head was from that show. But I hadn't remembered those people in the costumes at all. And then also the narrator that went with that show, I remembered him, the guy sitting in the chair reading the book. If you are like 40 or older, you probably remember this. And then later on, we had The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, which was the cartoons that were, drawn in the way that we see in the Disney merchandise now. And then the song on that one was different. I remembered it, but that just wasn't the song that was in my head. And there was no narrator, but the cartoons were what I was remembering. So I was kind of remembering the first song and the narrator guy in the chair, along with the second animations of the cartoons. So I sat and watched that for a little bit and just reminisced about when I was a little kid and 9 or 10 years old even, I adored those cartoons. And I would get up really early in the morning and make cinnamon toast, and I would watch Little House on the Prairie, which started at like 5:30 in the morning. And then I would watch Winnie the Pooh, and then I'd get ready for school. And I think I did that like through 6th grade. But anyway, back to the book. So they're just fun stories, right? With humor and just little things thrown in that would definitely go over the head of preschoolers. But, I think that sometimes those things are thrown in for the adults' sake. I always notice that on VeggieTales, right? There's always jokes in there for the parents that the kids don't get. And so I think that was kind of the case here as well. Just funny things for the reader, the one who's actually reading aloud to the child to laugh at and stay engaged with the story. But then also another underlying, more basic level for the kids. So I think these are really great read alouds for any age, honestly, because they're just funny and reminiscent, very nostalgic. I really loved this dedication right at the beginning that Milne wrote, basically from him and Christopher Robin to his wife, to Christopher Robin's mother. And it says, "To her, hand in hand we come, Christopher Robin and I, to lay this book in your lap. Say you're surprised. Say you'll like it. Say it's just what you wanted, because it's yours, because we love you." And I thought that was so special. I made, I guess, the mistake, I wish I wouldn't have done this, of reading kind of in depth about the life of A.A. Milne and Christopher Robin and all that. And in the end, it didn't go well for this family. They didn't stay together as this tight-knit, loving family that they seemed to have started out as. And it sounds like Christopher Robin, his son, resented the attention that he, got as a child, resented the exposure to the public eye. His father's fame came fast and furious, and it just seemed like, I don't know, it kind of ruined just the specialness of the stories that, these were originally stories that A.A. Milne was telling his son, bedtime stories or whatever, that he had made up about his son's animals and dollies and things. And so just to have all of those special, tender moments exposed, I guess Christopher Robin got bullied a lot, teased a lot at school, because it was clear that his father was writing from real life. And so clear up through his, teenage years and stuff, I guess he got bullied a lot and things, making fun of him, right? Because of the things that his father had wrote when he was a little child. And so they were special things to his parents, but Christopher Robin, I guess, came to resent it. And And so anyway, there's more, but I just, it bummed me out. I wish I wouldn't have read that. I wanted to stay in my little place of sweet, ignorant bliss. But so all in all, I really did enjoy reading Winnie the Pooh. I loved the illustrations. They're the original E.H. Shepard illustrations. Just cute things, simple, adorable little illustrations. And just the funny little things that Pooh says, the funny little jokes that you kind of have to think about sometimes to get it. Like, it's just really well done. But like I said, it's a mix of things that would appeal to the one reading aloud and that little kids would laugh at or find fun or nostalgic or endearing. So I think this is just one of the very perfect read alouds out there. So those are the 3 things that I have read so far as doing this curriculum. I feel like I will probably speed things up a little bit. I'm finding that I read for 10 minutes and then I write for about 45 minutes on the book that I read. So that's fine. But I think I would like to go through it a little bit quicker. So I should be back fairly soon with another update on this self-educated mom journey that I'm taking. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope it was interesting and fun. Talk to me in the comments if you want, say hi, or talk about your experiences with these books or any other self-education journeys that you put yourself on. Hope everybody is doing well, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.